And we are here live with Brian Broaddus ahead of the Week 5 matchup between the Steelers and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are going to be on the road at Pittsburgh. So, Brian, I know it's been a long week of speculating about everything from play action to the run game to what the defense is going to do in terms of handling Justin Fields as a dual
Yeah.
threat quarterback. So far at this point, what are your thoughts on the matchup between the Cowboys and the Steelers?
I think it's an interesting one because it's here we are with it's just the third opponent that's an AFC North team, and then you got Cincinnati left in December, and probably a bad time to play Cincinnati because by then they kind of figure things out. You usually catch Cincinnati early in the year, they'll kind of not be as good as they are late in the year, but the thing that you always notice, and this even when it goes back to when I was a scout in the league, and the teams that you play, and especially the teams that aren't common opponents, like the Steelers, like the Browns, like the Ravens, that division has very good defensive linemen. Now, when you look at when you think about how do you survive in the AFC North, you better have a pretty good front. And the Steelers' offensive line has been a little suspect in a lot of ways. They've had a lot of problems with injuries. They've tried to do some various things with it. They've made it better with some additions, and then all of a sudden injuries hit, and have tried to throw first round picks at their tackles, and they get one hurt. And so, but I noticed with their defensive line, dealing with T.J. Watt, dealing with Cam Hayward. This is a group it's built on the toughness. It's built on the ability to rush the passer. But it's not a defense that I thought it might be. They've had some really good games, but they've also made some mistakes along the way, and I don't think that teams have taken advantage of some of the mistakes that they've made. Some have, when they bust a coverage or they jump a route or they jump a gap, when they're out of position. I mean, the Colts did a tremendous job last week of handling T.J. Watt. They kept him completely off the stat sheet. And so, it gives you ideas. It gives you hope that, maybe Dallas can come up with a plan. He's going to play predominantly on your right side, which would be the defense's left, and that means we'll see if they move him over. They don't usually move him over to play as a right end. You would think, oh my gosh, they're going to move him over Guyton, and here we go. But it's going to be predominantly, Terrence Steele getting the assignment. Now, how do you handle things? Do you space him? Do you chip him? How do you do these things? Terrence Steele played really well against Burns last week, this time with the Giants. So it gives you a little hope that, there's moments where he's been really good facing these guys one-on-one, and then there's been other times where he struggled. So I think both teams are kind of dealing with, even though the Steelers are 3-1, the Cowboys are kind of dealing with the same thing. The Steelers are dealing with the same things. It's two teams with injuries. Dallas has the better quarterback. Each team has a really talented receiver. There's questions on the offensive line, the health of both teams. That you lost your pass rusher. They lost one of their pass rushers. It's kind of a team. Both teams are trying to kind of figure out, how they're going to navigate this one Sunday night there in Pittsburgh, because the game really is for the taking for both teams. I don't feel like, even if Dallas has struggled with their run defense, Pittsburgh will run the football. They're committed to running the football with the number of carries they've had. Lead the league. But where they failed is when they get in heavy personnel, which gives Dallas problems. They can't run the ball. They're not successful. So both teams are dealing with a lot of issues here, and it's going to be kind of up to which team manages the issues, but also is able to take advantage of any mistakes that the other might make.
What you just mentioned about both teams having a lot of issues, that was actually one of the things I found interesting when I started like trying to look at the Steelers
Yeah.
and see what they've been doing well, and also looking to see what it was that the Colts took advantage of,
Hmm.
because they were undefeated going into that game. And so many people were talking about the Steelers as though, okay, this is their year.
Right.
Justin Fields is completely transformed. And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I do feel like Justin Fields has absolutely evolved. He doesn't look like the same quarterback he looked like in Chicago, but I do think this is also a situation where the Steelers' record made them look a little bit more threatening than they actually are. Because, for one thing, none of their wins were blowouts. They were
Hmm.
relatively close, you know? And so that's why the Colts didn't have to come out and have an insanely great performance to beat them. They just had to do exactly what you just said, which
Yeah.
was take advantage of their mistakes and figure out, like, okay, what are they struggling with? Use
Right.
that against them. And they were able to get the win. And not exactly what they did, but what they did loosely in terms of taking advantage of those mistakes, I feel like those are things that the Cowboys can do as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of helped me understand why so many people are predicting this game to be so close, because I think the
Yeah.
last line I saw on it was like they were predicting it to be like 3 points difference.
Mhm.
I think was it in, I can't even remember if it was in favor of the Cowboys or not,
No, it's the
but it did
Steelers. The
help me
Steelers
understand
favored by
why the
3. Yeah.
predictions are so close.
Yeah. It's you're absolutely right. And you look at the Colts game, and the Colts got up 17-0. The
Mhm.
Colts did a really good job, and the Colts, even losing their quarterback during the game, they were moving the ball, they were running the football, they were making plays down the field. Man, it was, it was very impressive what the Colts were able to do, and the Steelers weren't ready to play that game to start out with, and they got down and they rallied a little bit, but tip of the cap again to if you can find a way to limit, you know, Pickens, and you can limit Watt, and you can limit Hayward, and you can limit some of these guys. This game is going to be very much like when you look at. We all are into the looking at the metrics now of and I'm like an older guy. It's like when I was in scouting, we didn't have analytics. We had some forms of analytics, but it wasn't like it is today. But today you can kind of get down. It's not just breaking down right and left runs. It's attacking certain holes. It's certain coverages. It's a fascinating way to study football now. When you put it with the film, it makes it even more fascinating. And you kind of learn. Like I was sitting there thinking, okay, why do these corners for the Steelers? Why do they play? They rotate sides. They'll there was a game, and I want to believe it was the Chargers game where they were 50-50 basically on Jackson and Porter, the two corners, playing right and left. And I couldn't figure out. I'm like, well, usually in college football, when you evaluate, there's field corners. Those are the ones that play to the open side and play the field. And then there's what we call the boundary corner, which plays into the sideline. And I was thinking, were they playing boundary and field corners here? And we interviewed today on our radio show on 105.3 The Fan. We interviewed a writer with the Athletic covers the Steelers. And no, he was talking about that sometimes that the Steelers will match up depending on if your quarterback is right-handed or left-handed, or if they feel like that your best receiver plays a predominant side, Porter will travel with that guy, whether they feel, and how they're going to match up. But, it was amazing to me that it was a 50-50 split in the one game. And then the other game, it was more like Porter stayed in his spot, 60% of the time, and the other 40% he was on the other side. So, there's things that Terrell Austin's doing with his corners that's, you got to find a way to kind of take advantage of that. And, they've struggled a little bit in the secondary there. They've got, Mika Fitzpatrick is an excellent safety. When they play that single high, he is, that cover 3, he's a very good safety, free safety. He's been really good. But they've struggled a little bit. Porter hasn't been as great as he's been in the past. And I mentioned Jackson; they brought him in, and he struggled a little bit. And then and they get in the nickel. Beanie Bishop has struggled as the nickel some. So there's plays to be made, and and we all know this, Jazz, watching Dallas play against teams that play single high looks. What do? They attack the seams. This is where Ferguson, gets up the field and Dak finds him, and it's a 28-yard gain. If they're going to play a lot of single high looks, they're going to run vertical routes on these guys, and they're going to make these guys defend the vertical routes. And the Steelers have been playing a lot of zone, and when you watch them play zone, they give up a lot of space. And man, if I'm playing the Cowboys, I'm not giving the Cowboys any space to run. These Cowboys receivers have a hard enough time separating as is. But if you let them run on zone routes, Dak's going to throw the ball well against the team. And this team doesn't blitz. That's another thing.
Right.
They just don't. It's amazing that they rely on 4-man pressure. It's big for them. I was watching the tape and I'm like going, okay, let me look at the metrics of this. Man, they rush a lot. They rush 4, it seems like, all the time. I was trying to find a number. Well, this team, when they blitz, when they bring more than 4, their pass rush pressure goes down. They're one of 5 teams in the NFL that if they rush more than 4, their pass rush pressures go down. So they don't do it. They rush 4, and that's how they get you. So when they rush 5 or more, their numbers actually go down. So it's kind of a crazy kind of a metric that you look at. But I'm like, man, these guys don't blitz. It's a lot of 4-man pressure, but blitz plays right into Dak Prescott's hands too, and I don't think they want to do that. So
I feel like their tendency to the way they play zone and the amount of space that they allow, I feel like that's going to play into the strengths of not only Dak Prescott, but also
Yeah,
CeeDee Lamb.
absolutely.
Because even if they try to adjust, the amount to which they would have to adjust in order to actually throw Dak Prescott off of his game, I feel like that's not an easy adjustment to
No.
make from week to week. So I just don't see that going well. I do think that, the way their defense works, and this is really the way all defenses work, right, is where everything happens from the front. So the success of their defense is definitely going to depend on the success of their defensive line.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at yet another game where it all comes down to, or mostly comes down to, the matchups in the trenches, I think, because once CeeDee Lamb gets the ball, I feel like he's going to pick them apart. And even if Dak does have to rely on Ferguson, which one of the points that I made earlier was that he'll use Ferguson, of course, because he does. But usually Dak ends up relying on his tight ends when he's dealing with blitz situations, which they don't do a lot. So we'll see how that goes. This actually might be a game, I'm thinking, where the offense does have an opportunity to be a little bit creative because they don't blitz and because they play so much cover 3.
Yeah.
And so that was actually one of the things.
Can I circle back real quick?
Yeah.
You used the term creative in relation to the Dallas offense. Does that?
Well, that's because I'm getting to that. Remember how before
I was just curious. I was curious how you were going to frame this, but go ahead.
No, I got you. Remember how before we started, I was asking you if you watched Mike McCarthy's presser today?
Yeah.
It's because he spent. Hold on. You're going to understand why I'm laughing in a second. You might already understand. It's because he spent several minutes talking about creativity. However, he didn't talk about it in a way to where anybody I spoke to, including some of the players on the offense, really understood what he meant by creativity.
Yeah.
And so I was curious if you might have an idea. I feel like, judging from your reaction already, you're just like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. But let me tell you what he said. He was talking about some of the changes that have been made on the roster. And he said, well, we've got to watch volume. And he said, when volume goes down, creativity has to go up. And so then naturally somebody asked him about that later. Like, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? And so he started explaining that it was kind of complicated. So he started talking about how his creativity with the scheme starts back in February or March because they have the hold on. Let me pull up my notes because I had to take extensive notes on this, Brian, because I was
Yeah, I
not
was doing, I
following.
was doing, I was working on Love of the Star with Bobby Belt when this was going on. So my apologies
Yeah.
for not, and then I had to get into my show. So I didn't get to see Mike speak today or hear his words.
So he said the process starts in February or March,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with scheme evaluation, and then it goes to scheme evolution, and then he has to take into account the players that they get in the draft and during the
Mm-hmm.
offseason. And ultimately, he said in times of crisis you have to rely on players, not plays, which I was so tempted to be like, so are you saying we're in a time of crisis? But he said in times of crisis you have to rely on players, not plays. So he said that by creativity he really means utilization, which still did not help me make sense of it. The only thing that I could think of to even halfway try to make sense of it is that he's considering the fact that with Brandon Cooks out,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to change a lot about how the Steelers defense approaches the Cowboys offense. So they're going to have some opportunities to do some things differently. That was the only conclusion that I could come to try to make sense of that.
Yeah. Well, Mike will give you the word salad. I mean,
Yes.
he'll kind of he'll talk around some things. Um, I saw creativity a week ago in the form of how he was able to run Cooks behind Ferguson on like a moving pick and then break it out or break it inside, and Dak made an easy throw. Um, I think when you struggle with separation, you need to find a way then to put guys on the move. You
Mhm.
need to find a way. Look at the Ravens and the way that they used Flowers, their wide receiver, constantly on the move, constantly giving him the opportunity to run routes, playing on the move. It's a little bit different when you have a receiver that's lined up left or right, ball snapped, and now we're starting to run, as opposed to you're motioning across. If they're playing man, you got a guy chasing the motion. And then, or if they're not, if they're playing zone, now you got a guy that's on motion, and now a corner who's playing zone has to adjust to a guy that's on the run. That could be a little bit of a difficult task. I the thing, Jazz, that bothered me, and I've been blessed in my life, but I'm an older guy, 60 years old now. But I've been in when I was in the NFL, I was with some really good offensive minds. I was with Andy Reid in Green Bay. I was with John Gruden. I was with Sean Payton. I've been with some really good offensive coaches. And the thing that kind of bothered me, well, those guys were always taking ideas. They were always watching tape. They were always, when we were in Green Bay, we stole a screen package that from the Minnesota Vikings that Andy Reid took from Green Bay to Philadelphia with all those red zone screens and stuff like that. Andy used to kill us with Brian Westbrook and running the screen packages and stuff. That's all stuff we stole from the Minnesota Vikings. And I remember this summer at training camp, we had a chance to interview Brian Schottenheimer. And I asked Brian, I said, who do you steal plays from? And he says, well, you really don't steal plays. You really don't, you don't do that. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Why
I
do you
was
think
with,
that is?
I don't know. I don't know. And I said, I go, and I asked him, I said, you really don't steal plays? He goes, no, we have things that we work on and believe in and this, that, and the other. And, maybe, but I was with guys who I mentioned that Andy Reid is one of the biggest thieves there ever is when it comes to stealing plays. Andy will watch a high school game and steal a play if he feels like it can work, but the really good play callers, they know when to call plays. Don't get me wrong. And the play sheet's important, but I think you have to find ways if your guys are, Dak Prescott deals with tight window throws every damn week. He leads
Yeah.
the league. He leads the league in tight window attempts and tight window completions. That doesn't that tell you that maybe we should do something to create more space for our guys?
Oh, I agree. My thing about it is this.
And I know you agree, and I know a lot of people agree, but I just can't. I find it hard to believe. And the word creativity is, how about, how about just assist? How about assist your player? How about coach your players or help your players? I think assist is probably the better word. Assist your guys into having the opportunity to run routes that create space,
Right.
and
No, I think assist is a really good word because my philosophy on it is this. I feel like a good scheme is supposed to make it easier for your players to play fast and be
yeah.
aggressive and not have to think so hard. And I get it. The Cowboys have some really good players who can make plays. Dak can make plays.
Hmm.
CD can make plays. You even have people like Brandon Cooks and Kevontae Turpin who
Hmm.
occasionally have their moments, right? But what I would like to see more of is creative play calling that sets them up. And then at the right moment, let them make the play. But don't have them like every snap, they either got to make a play or their production is like stifled. You know what I'm saying?
You
That is
watch,
what
yeah,
frustrates me.
you watch every Cowboy game as intently as I do. There's everybody who's watching our broadcast here right now watches Cowboy games very intently. And you sit there and you're like, I don't want to speak for you guys, but when I watch this team, especially when I watch them live, when I'm at the game, like the Ravens and the Saints game I was at here recently,
Mhm.
when you watch those games, why does it feel like that we are fighting for every yard we get? There's
Because
nothing
they
there's nothing easy about this offense. There's nothing easy. You watch, we're all blessed now to be able to get film and and you don't have to be a former NFL scout to just sit down and watch and understand why the 49ers have success or why the Dolphins have success or why the Rams have success or why the Vikings have success. You know, you watch their players and you watch how they play, and you don't have to know the scheme, but you have to go going, damn, that Jefferson's open again.
yeah.
Damn, that Cooper Cup's open again. Damn, that Puka Nakua's open again. It's, you know, damn, that fourth receiver, Jennings for the 49ers, when all the receivers are out and he's got 12 targets and 10 catches, and you're going, well, how does the fourth receiver for the 49ers have 10 catches in a game? You know
I mean,
why? They
Steelers
scheme
do
him
it.
open. Well, okay, look what's going on in Green Bay. Their quarterback gets hurt in the opening game. So what they're doing is they're playing with their backup guy who can't throw the ball, Willis, who can't throw the ball all that well. They don't trust him to throw the ball that well. Well, what do? They completely change their offense to adapt to where he can play. So now you're like going, well, damn, that looks intelligent. That's what I mean. Okay, I'll tell you when you see creativity with the Cowboys. Now that you're in town, you'll go to an OTA practice next year. Probably, well, it might be a new coach. I don't know, but if you'd have gone to the OTA practices this year, you would have seen them use Deuce Vaughn in a way. You would have seen them use Turpin in a way, and I could see why Mike's like talking about. Well, in February, this is where you kind of get your creative idea. Well, okay, we're after the draft, we're watching these practices, and you're like, well, that's pretty creative. I was watching. I remember one time sitting up the stands in Oxnard a couple of summers ago, goal line period. Heck, I think you were even there. I think we were watching. It was and the creativity of the goal line period. We were sitting there watching it, and I was going, well, damn, that's pretty good. Oh, I like the pick there. I like the way they got Cooks there. Okay. And then you don't see it again, and you're going,
Where'd
what
they
are we
go?
doing? What are we doing? And I just when Brian Schottenheimer told me, oh, we don't steal plays. Maybe he was just pulling my chain a little bit. That's probably maybe it's true.
No, I
But
mean it might be accurate because like
I'm sitting there.
what
I
other
was with
team do you
Andy
see that
Reid.
looks like this? Like
I,
if this is what they're stealing, where are they stealing it from?
I worked with a multiple Super Bowl winning coach who loves to steal plays from guys and then like puts them in and like or puts his spin on them. You know, that's creativity. But he has the rare quarterback. He's got a rare quarterback. But you know what? You're not playing with a bad quarterback either. You know,
Not at
how
all.
about help the guy a little bit? I mean, he leads the league in tight window throws. Why? Why does he lead the league in tight window throws? Because they're tight windows. There's no,
Exactly.
there's, he leads the league in tight window completions. Why? Because there's no space. There's no easy throws. Every pass that he throws seems like it is a grind to get it there. And it's not because of talent. It's just, is the route good enough? Is the combination good enough? Is the receiver getting covered here and all hook? You want to watch the Steelers the same way. Arthur Smith, who the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, they play all hook offense. You know why? Because their quarterback, they don't have confidence in him throwing the ball. You play all hook offense
But
for
even I've seen them do some things to find voids in coverage a
no
couple of
question.
times
No
at
question.
least.
Pickens, but Pickens is a bad ball catcher. Pickens will run. Pickens doesn't always separate. He will have people hanging all over him catching the football. But see, that's what I'm saying. With Dak Prescott, ninth year in the league. Okay, 2016 Dak Prescott when he was a rookie going to Pittsburgh. Yeah, all hook offense all day. Hand the ball to Zeke all day. But aren't we past that? I'm just saying they have to do better. They have to do better with Dak and helping him. And yeah, he's 9 years in this league. And should Dak be good? Sure, he should. I know there's people out there right now going, well, damn it, Broadus. They're paying him $60 million a year to make throws. Okay, yeah, they are. But not every throw has to be a tight window throw. I watch enough film of other teams to see that guys that have far less talent than Dak Prescott don't have to make every single throw a tight window throw.
My thing is like, when is the last time that a big investment meant that you didn't have to maintain or help something? That would be like me getting an expensive car and then
Yeah.
being like,
Don't put
what do you
gas,
mean
don't
you
put
need
oil in
tires
it.
changed?
Yeah,
What do you
yeah,
mean you need an
yeah,
oil change?
yeah,
I paid however many $1 million for you. It's
yeah.
like, no, I feel like the fact that they paid him $60 million is even more reason why they should want him to be successful, because
Right,
you need a return on that investment,
right.
but he can't do everything by
No,
himself. I feel
he's
like he
yeah.
does his part.
There's times where he's been very, very good. And let's be honest too, this year, there's times where the offense has just gone away. Why does the offense work for 2 quarters and then 2 quarters it doesn't work? I mean, is that play caller? Sure. Quarterback? Sure. Routes? Sure. Blocking? Sure. Lack of running game? Sure. I mean, there are reasons, but to me, you just can't completely fall apart in like the second half and not do anything. And I could say Mike will word salad you on some of this stuff. Well, our philosophy, and you're like going, oh, okay, great. But when you tell me you're not looking, and maybe they are, maybe he is just totally BSing us. But I don't know why they've got 26 coaches over there. I tweeted this the other day. Got 26 coaches. I would have one of them watching the Rams, watching the 49ers, watching the Detroit Lions, watching the Miami Dolphins, watching the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm watching all these teams. I feel like they've got some creative offensive play callers. And if I have to steal 3 or 4 plays, like, oh, this would be good with our personnel, I'm doing that stuff. If people are proving they can't cover stuff, I'm running those plays. When we
Yeah,
see,
it's not like
I
you got
just
to
see,
replace the whole
I
playbook.
swear, every time Dallas has the ball and you watch them live, it seems like it is a struggle to move the ball. And they get fortunate. Big play by CD, big play by Ferguson, big play by Hunter Lipke, big play by Lamb again, big play by Dowdle, but it just seems like it's just not bang, 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 bang down the field the way it needs to be, like everybody else that plays in the league.
Let me put a quick pin in that. I'm gonna address the chat real quick, and then we're
Okay.
gonna come back to this conversation. I'm gonna tell you something Mike McCarthy said today about the run game. So, guys, if you're in the chat, if you have questions about this game or about the Cowboys' offense or defense, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We only have a few minutes left with Brian Broaddus, who's been gracious enough to bless this stream with his presence. So, good seeing you, Clement. Good seeing you as always, Chris. Vaj hopped into the chat earlier and said, "What's up?" I don't know if he's still here. You know how he is, in and out.
Yeah, I just got done. I just got done dealing with him. So if he's still listening, go to bed, bro.
Yeah, I figured he already went to bed. I'm like, he probably popped
Yeah,
in and said hi, and now he's like,
yeah,
what does he say? Snug as a bug in a rug.
that's him.
Okay, so I'll monitor that to see if they have any questions.
Sure.
But Mike McCarthy mentioned something about the run game.
Mm.
He was asked directly what he likes about the run game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was another word salad response. I'm gonna be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the ones that if I could pull it up, I would. I don't know why it's not on YouTube yet. But essentially he said that some of the best showings from the run game he saw last week against the Giants. And
Mm-hmm.
he talked about how that he called them run courses were syncing up with the run blocking.
Yeah.
And so I got a chance to talk to Tyler Smith and Tyler Guyton, and I just asked them if they agreed, and they did for the most part. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, of course they would, because yeah, the run game did look better against the Giants than it had the previous 3 weeks. But I also attributed that in part, and tell me what you think about this. I
Mm-hmm.
attributed that in part to the efforts of Rico Dowdle, because
Mm.
real talk, the Cowboys don't really have a run scheme, or not one that
Mm.
seems to make sense. It definitely does not play to the strengths of the running backs. It doesn't feel like they each have a job. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like they're just kind of thrown out there, and it's just like hope for the best. And so I'm looking at this and I'm just like, all right, if that's what we're dealing with in terms of the run scheme, quote unquote, that's not really a scheme, and Rico Dowdle is able to make the most of it, then they made a good decision, at least by letting him get the most carries.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, of course, the offensive line is going to play a role in that. And I think I want to say it was Lupke who said, okay, they're just a block away from having a better run game. At least that was his perspective, which I could see.
Sure.
Because there have been some instances that I'm like, oh man, if they would have made that one last block, or if the running back would have taken a better gap on that, he could have gotten so many more yards. So I get it. But do you feel like Mike McCarthy's answer was a legitimate answer? And if your answer is different, is there anything that you like about the run game so far this season?
I do like Rico Dowdle, and I feel like there needs to be more of Hunter Lipke running the ball. I kind of feel like, though, that there's always these, again, we were talking about metrics earlier, and there's always that one that, expected yards. And I don't know how they measure expected yards, because they're saying that Dallas should be averaging 4.6 yards a carry because of, with expected yards and stuff. And I watch the tape like you do. I watch the end zone copy. I have the ability to pull all the running plays and just watch them, back to back to back to back. And I don't know where they're getting these expected yards from. I feel like
I
there's
think it's one of those statistician things that,
it's weird because
because
they were getting on Zeke pretty heavily about he was leaving expected yards on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking there's a lot of leaving of expected that's not blocked very well play. That play's not blocked very well. And, there's abilities to make guys miss and stuff like that. Singletary for the Giants was a make-miss guy. He didn't make anybody miss the other day. So, but these expected yard stat, I don't quite get it, because they're saying that Dallas should be better running the ball. But when you watch the end zone copy of the tape, there doesn't appear to be holes there. Now, people will say, well, does Rico Dowdle have a vision problem? There's been some snaps where Rico has missed some holes. There's been some opportunities, and maybe that's where the expected stat should come in. but I kind of feel like that Rico Dowdle does a pretty good job of when handed the football, of being, trying to be physical, trying to make guys miss, trying to run through arm tackles, trying to grind this thing out. Me personally, I kind of feel like you said, I really don't know what their run scheme is. I see draws, I see traps. I don't really see something that you can hang your hat on. You can
Right.
say, okay, hey, we have to get 4 yards. This is the play we're calling. Even the other day they tried to run Dak on the read option and he pulled the ball and got tackled for a negative play where that used to not be the case. But here we are, and so it's if I had to say some positivity, I think the most positive thing you can do is if it's a short yardage play, handing the ball to Hunter Lipke is never a bad option. That
Okay.
4th-down-and-1 run when they decided not to block Thibodeau and the crack block that they got from Cooks, that, it gave them a chance. But Hunter Lipke's balance, be able to keep his feet and to fall forward, and get 3 yards out of a play when that should have been a -2 and Giants ball. I've grown. The appreciation I have for him is really my dream, Jazz, in this game against the Steelers. It's probably going to be a close, tight game, and there's probably going to be raining during the game. It's going to be tough.
Mm.
And my dream is Dallas is winning this game with 4 minutes to go, and they have the ball, and they just keep handing it to Hunter Lipke, and they kill the clock by doing it. And everybody like, yeah, that was amazing. That's the kind of, I think handing the ball to him is never a bad option. But I'm gonna also say this. I'm to the point though where, and I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of Ezekiel Elliott fans out there, and there's a lot of fans in the front office of Ezekiel Elliott.
Yes, there are.
I'm sitting him, and I don't know if I want to sit Deuce Vaughn because I think Deuce Vaughn can bring you some little extra things, but I think I would just sit Ezekiel Elliott and I would elevate Dalvin Cook just to see, are these expected yards a real thing? Are plays really blocked well enough that they should be getting 4.6 yards a carry, instead of getting 3.3 yards a carry?
That
Should
would be a
they?
fun experiment.
Yeah.
And it relates to a question that Clement has, and I'll respond first and then I'll let you give your
Go
spiel.
ahead.
But he said,
Yeah.
do you think that the Cowboys should use the outside zone run game to limit Cameron Hayward and also test TJ Watt, knowing Alonzo Highsmith is out for this game? So Clement, so piggybacking off what Brian just said, like the outside zone run game is actually one of Dalvin Cook's strengths.
There you
Now,
go.
unfortunately, he's not getting called up for this game.
Nope.
So, in theory, to answer your question, yes, I think they should. But
Yeah.
are they going to? I don't
Nope.
see that happening. And as
No.
far as testing TJ Watt, I don't think they need to. The Colts actually had a good amount of success just going in the opposite direction of TJ Watt.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if that works, do that as often as you need to. I don't think
Yeah.
we need to test TJ Watt unless there's some situation that ends up calling for it. What do you
Yeah.
think, Brian?
I'll tell you what, you're absolutely right about the outside zone and Dalvin Cook. I did learn this watching, and Highsmith not playing for them is going to be a big loss in the running game. The
Mhm.
thing that TJ Watt can do is he can run you down from the backside. And he was late on a couple of opportunities. The Colts were able to take advantage of that. Some of these other games that I've watched where they mashed Watt and Herbig. They mashed those guys. They got big blockers and just pushed on those guys. Those guys are built to rush the passer. That's their gig. They're upfield, rush the passer. Watt and those guys, when they have to fight blocks, could be a problem for them. I mean, a problem for that ball gets on the edge and all of a sudden, it's big bodies on. I mean, the Chargers and others, they just they took the ball at those guys on the edge. They said, okay, we're going to bring tight ends over. We're going to bring tackles over. We're going to toss it. We're going to push you guys and see if you can get off the blocks. And they had some success. So people that tried to mash them, I think had a little success. I worry about running away from Watt because he can get you on the backside. He can run and get you from the backside. But you're not wrong with your
And
assessment.
he did do that a couple of
Sure
times
did, but he got
against the
late.
Colts.
He
But
was late.
it's like you said,
But
they were
made
able
they
to
were
do
late.
things
They got him
early enough
through.
to kind of mitigate what he was bringing to the table.
Yeah. You got to make sure that if he's running, that he hesitates a little bit because he can run you down. I mean, if you have backs that can go, just go. If you have those guys, just go because you don't want to be hesitating because the minute you hesitate, he's going to tackle you for a 3-yard gain. That's what he's just going to do it from the backside. But I wouldn't be afraid of mashing the ball at either one of these guys in this game, especially on the outside. I don't want to deal. I'll tell you what, you talk about Hayward, but they also got a defensive tackle with Keanu Benton is another one that's a big body guy that is, these guys do a really good job of extending and then getting rid of you. Extend, control, get rid of you. So I'm trying my best to kind of keep things out of that middle. Teams try and trap them and, bring inside guys and wham them and stuff like that. It's a little bit of a dicey, but those guys, they've seen those two big guys inside have seen it all, with Hayward. And the thing about Hayward is he's going to play over Tyler Smith the majority of this game. So that'll be a great matchup to watch.
It will. So we got another question from Ignacio Flores, who says, hello and blessings to you both. I'm
Thank you.
traveling to Pittsburgh for this game Sunday night. Awesome.
Take
Wishing
a jacket.
This game will come down to coaching and play design for us to win, I feel. Your take? So I'll say I agree. That's actually something I said earlier on Girls Talk, Boys Talk when they asked who needs to have a big game. I'm like, Mike McCarthy. He needs to call the hell out of this game for us to win. I feel that way because Mike Tomlin is a very involved and a very smart head coach. Like, I know he's not one of the coordinators, but he does seem to kind of direct the overall philosophy and what they should be focused on. And he, at least in the press conference he did on Tuesday, he already seemed to have a certain level of awareness about the type of game that they would need to play in order to beat the Cowboys on the offensive side, at least. So I feel like it's going to be a little bit of chess in the sense that Mike McCarthy is going to have to anticipate what they might get thrown at them so that he can kind of counter in advance of whatever they present. What are your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, it's funny. I think your assessment of Mike, I love Mike Tomlin. I really, really do.
Same.
You look at the Steelers since 1969, they've had 3 coaches: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. 3 coaches. Think about that. Since 1969. Amazing. The stability that they've had in that organization. The Rooney family is one of my favorite families I've ever dealt with. The thing that Mike Tomlin, now I do remember a game, Dak's rookie year in Pittsburgh, 2016. Mike Tomlin went for 2 very early in that game and kept going for 2. And Ben Roethlisberger and the Steeler offense was getting stopped. And at the end, they were chasing points. And if Mike Tomlin would have just kicked the extra points, the game, they would have been fine. But they chased 2-point plays the whole entire game. And Dallas did a great job of just fending off. Mike knows his team. Mike is going to, but Mike will be stubborn about some things though too. I was with his special teams coach, Danny Smith at Philadelphia. Danny's a really great guy. Danny's been with Mike this whole time in Pittsburgh. So Danny is going to talk to Mike, and I wouldn't be surprised they have some trick play lined up in this one because Mike's got, Bones Fossil's the master. Everybody has the respect to Bones Fossil there, but Danny will try and one-up him on national TV. Guarantee you it's going to happen. You're going to get some trick play. But that's what Mike Tomlin does. Mike's willing to kind of take chances, go for it on 4th down, go for two, or when he doesn't have to go for two. He's going to coach in it's going to be in an orthodox way, and it kind of puts pressure on you as the opponent because you don't know how he's going to manage the game. But you're right.
Right.
He's got, Terrell Austin, the coordinator, defensive coordinator. He's got a good handle on him. Arthur Smith, first year with Mike. If Mike feels like that you can't play run defense, Mike is going to make you prove you can play run defense. So this is he if honestly, Steelers have the advantage at head coach. They do. They really do. And even though even if Mike didn't call the plays, I would say, I'd say they have the advantage. Mike calls. But you're right, though. What you said on Girls Talk Boys Song. By the way, you do a hell of a job on that. I love
Thank you.
you ladies do a really really nice job with that. But the thing with Mike Mike McCarthy needs a big game. He does need a big
Yes.
game. He's a Pittsburgh guy. It would be nice for him to get that win, and he's tried to with the Green Bay thing. It hadn't worked out a couple of times for him. But this would be nice for him to go home and get a win, being from there. But they need him at his absolute best. And, you just, you hate to say this, you just don't know what you're going to get, Hopefully you get the best, but, he's going up against a pretty stout foe in Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's going to have to get some of these other guys involved.
Yeah.
Like, I know Cowboys fans feel like we can depend on Dak and CD and Ferg for
Yeah.
everything. And there are a lot of cases where that is the truth. But
Yeah.
for 4 quarters against this team,
Well, yeah.
they're going to have to figure
Yeah.
out how to get Jalen Tolbert and
How about
and
Turpin?
Devontae Turpin
Yeah.
and do something with the run game.
Right.
Like we've had success a little bit, comparative success. I'll put
Mhm.
it that way, comparative success, right? Both Rico and Zeke have been able to get more than 3 yards per carry, which is solid. And Rico, it kind of felt like he was starting to kind of get somewhere. And so
Mm.
I feel like all those things are things that they're going to have to build on in order for them to win this game. And I think even then it'll still be close.
Yeah.
So on that note, you brought up the defense for a second. I'm scrolling. Somebody had a question. Oh, Clement. He said keys to stopping or slowing down Pittsburgh downhill running game and design runs for Fields. I actually have a thought about the design runs for Fields. So what I thought was interesting, I always like to see what like the beat writers and fans are saying about the opposition, just to have things like
Mhm.
maybe I wouldn't normally look for and see what they are complaining about. And there are a few people who have been complaining about the idea that Mike Tomlin needs to quote unquote take the handcuffs off of Justin Fields.
Mhm.
And in his press conference on Tuesday, Mike Tomlin himself talked about the fact that he's still getting to know Justin Fields and
Yeah.
still getting to understand like what makes him tick, when he feels confident, when he doesn't feel confident, and what's the best way to support him. And it kind of made me wonder if this week might not be the week that he starts to feel comfortable taking those handcuffs off. And and if
Mhm.
that means we might see something different from Justin Fields, especially with it being that they become known for these slow starts, that now everybody knows that's like a weakness. Everybody knows if you come out, you're aggressive. And especially if you can get a lead on the Steelers, then you're going to have the advantage throughout the rest of the game. Right. So it's kind of making me wonder. I wonder if we might see something different in that regard. Now, as far as stopping it, Clement, of course, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Zimmer handles that without D-Lot and Micah, because
Yeah.
all the guys this week, they were saying, well, we just got to do our jobs. And they trust people like Chauncey to step up. They're expressing trust in Marshawn Nealon, but I don't necessarily know what to expect of those guys. Like I trust them because the guys in the locker room trust them,
Right.
but I couldn't tell you with any confidence that I actually know for sure how they're going to be used or what that's going to look like.
Yeah. I think that you're. I think you're onto something too, because, like I say, you have Tomlin has to be looking, Arthur Smith, the coordinator, has to be looking at that Ravens game and saying, okay, design quarterback runs. I mean, the key play, the final third down play was a design, run where it wasn't design. It was a RPO, and Jackson pulled it and went straight ahead and got the first down ball game. But I said it earlier. The metrics will tell you the Ravens have the most design quarterback runs. The Steelers are second with design quarterback runs, and this is going to be a game where I believe Fields is going to test your discipline. He's going to test these linebackers' discipline, who they did a much better job of playing the read option stuff against the Giants. They were better fills, they were better, and they were in better position. We talked to Eric Kendricks today on our weekly player show, and he was talking about the fits, the fills, the things that you have to do to be able to play. They're going to mess with you, with the action. He goes, you're a man down when you're a man down having to play because the quarterback is the ball carrier. So you're dealing with that, and they did a much better job against the Giants of handling that. But I guarantee you that Arthur Smith and that staff has watched that. Well, they've watched the Saints game and they've watched the Ravens game. And think about this, though, Jazz. Both those games, both Cowboy losses, neither team threw the ball more than 20 times in that game. You know what I'm saying? And Arthur Smith's probably looking like, Arthur Smith's like going, damn, I don't have to throw the ball and I can win a game, And I think that's how the Steelers are going to play this thing. If Dallas has got to play with discipline. You mentioned, and the thing, Nealon has done a pretty good job with that. Golston is a pretty disciplined player. We'll see with Overshone and Kendricks, Leofow, Clark. We're going to see Wilson, tackle, discipline. The Steelers, they play heavy 13 personnel. They don't run the ball well, and they don't run the ball well in 13 personnel, and they play it all the time. That's kind of their go-to thing. And if they continue to do that and Dallas plays good run defense, and now all of a sudden it turns into, okay, we can rush this passer, but you got to be careful rushing this guy because he'll run,
Right.
And that's so
And
Dallas.
everybody that you just named, their roles are going to be slightly adjusted because of the injuries that the defense is dealing with. So even though we've been able to depend on them in the past, that's what I mean when I say I don't know what it's going to look like, because we've been able to depend on them in roles that they've practiced and roles where, they've actually had time since preseason to work on playing those roles. And now, even though it won't be 100%, we're looking at slight adjustments and we'll get to see how they respond. And as far as runs, I'm glad that you mentioned that the Steelers are second in the league in design runs, because that's one of those things where then it turns into, for Justin Fields, not a matter of if he can, but when he can. Because a lot of those zone runs, they happen when the Steelers are already in a situation where it's like, okay, we need points, so we need momentum.
Right.
What happens if the Steelers are like, you know what, we're sick of these slow starts. We're actually going to come out and you're going to see some of those design runs in our first drive.
Yeah.
Like, is our defense prepared to handle that? Because the same way the Steelers have had trouble with slow starts, our defense hasn't really been that great in coming out and being aggressive from jump either. Neither has our offense really. So it could just be a matter of like, okay, who has the guts to come out and do it, and who has the personnel to come out and actually get it done and say, all right, my first drive, my second drive, we're going to take it to you. We're going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to put you on your heels. Like the tone of the game literally might be set in the first quarter.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think these teams are very evenly matched. I really, really do. They've got issues. You've got issues. Like I said, which team can take advantage of the mistakes that you might make, and who, where are the explosive plays going to come from? Where are the, how committed is Dallas going to be to trying to run the football and try and help their quarterback a little bit? But But if the Steelers are going to rush 4 and they find a way to block Watt, and Dallas is going to throw the ball. I mean, like I say, both teams are could be in peril in this game. But I like Dallas just because Dallas has a better quarterback. That's if you just told me, hey, Dallas has the better quarterback, and usually when these games are like this, the quarterback is the difference maker. Maybe Justin Fields will be the difference maker for them because he can run the ball. Maybe that turns into Dallas can't stop him from running the ball.
That would be interesting to see because I keep
Oh, he'll
saying
turn it over now too, running the ball. He'll
he
fumble the
might. He
ball.
might.
Yeah, be
That
ready for
that
that.
is when it comes to mistakes that the Steelers might make, that is something else that it'll be interesting to see how they've
Yeah,
worked on because like there have been several situations where it's simply just the snap of the ball that
yeah,
has, shot them in the foot.
mm,
So there are a lot of ways it could go. If they worked on it
mm.
and it's improved, we can't count on that. But Justin Fields, it literally looks like he is evolving week by week.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
that's one of the craziest things about the Steelers. All right. I'm going to read a few of these comments before we get out of here. Brandon Mahoney says, hey. Ignacio Flores says, great points, guys. Thank you. I want to see us have a good script of plays and play design. First 10 to 15 plays says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. And under this coaching staff, we seem to be so inconsistent with play design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to a point. They really like those hitch routes.
Yeah.
That's consistent. Swain says, I need Mozzie and Osa and Dak and Flo to have a solid game.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm going to add in CD and Ferg to that.
Yeah.
We need all of
Sure.
them to be solid. And that seems to be pretty much it. Brian, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I tell you what, like I said earlier, and I've said a lot, and I'm Mike McCarthy, I have a lot of word salad occasionally. This will be a difficult game. I think it'll be a difficult game for both teams. But this is not a Steeler team that you've seen from the past. Mike Tomlin, we talked about, has done a great job with this team. I mean, he's got them to 3-1. They don't score a lot of points, but they're a physical team. You have to be ready for that. Dallas needs to go into this game and play like they did at Cleveland on the road in another very difficult AFC North matchup. Go and find a way to match the physicality that the Steelers have, but limit your mistakes, limit your penalties, and find a way to get a victory here. Dallas does not need these next 3 games to be 0-3. If they're 0-3 in the next 3 games, then you and I are going to be doing a show talking about what coaches we think are going to be here. That it'll be that dire. It'll be, find a way 2-1, heck 3-0. Gosh, 3-0 would be just amazing, but find a way to be 2-1 here. And it's tough. These 3 games are going to be very difficult. But if this thing is 2-5, after San Francisco, then there's going to be a lot of folks over there at the Star that are going to be very much thinking about what the future lies for them, and you
I'm
really
gonna knock
don't.
on wood on that one.
Yeah, you don't want to be part of that. You don't want to be part of that. So find a way to get this victory. Find a way to come back and beat Detroit, or beat San Francisco. San Francisco is a little bit down in some ways, but got to find a way. Detroit's going to be coming off a bye. They looked really good on Monday night, so that'll be a difficult task.
And I feel like they're still a little upset about how last year went. So that there'll
be a little revenge. There'll be a little revenge involved, but you got to find a way to go get this one this week. They've played well on the road. The Giants, they played well. They played well enough to win. Played really well against the Browns. So maybe you could find a way to go 3-0 on the road to start the year. That'd be a nice way to get it going.
I think they'll find a way. And I think some of the things that they've dealt with this week in terms of who will or won't be around could turn out to be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see some good things from the offense. But I think one of the things the Cowboys fans can hang their hat on, and speaking of fans, shout out to writer Alba Ulmer in the comments who just popped up. I think one of the things they can hang their hats on is the fact that the Cowboys don't actually have to change a lot
Yeah.
in order to get these victories. If they can make the right adjustments at the right times,
Right.
it might be close wins, but they can get the wins. And if they
Just
win this
win.
weekend,
Yeah.
then they're back to the same point that they were this time last year.
Yep.
3-2 after week 5, and they can
Yeah.
just go from there. So on that note, thank you so much, Brian, for chiming in and offering your expertise and your perspective and having a laugh at the expense of Mike McCarthy's definition of creativity.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So on that note, y'all, just keep your notifications on for when I go live this weekend, and you'll hear from me then. I'm Jazz Monet with Brian Broaddus signing off. This has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. Thanks for watching.